Hello, I'm Paul, and this is Paul Plays with Fire. Welcome, come on in, grab a chair. Today on the show, we're going to be making another soup that we've made many times over the last few years. First, we're going to take these wonderful looking portobello mushrooms, and we're going to roast them in the oven with some thyme. Then we're going to take this head of cauliflower, we're going to cut it up, and we're going to roast it in the oven too. Finally, we're going to make a peanut butter roux with some shallots, garlic, and lots of butter. Then we're going to put everything together and with some stock, and we're going to make a delicious and elegant soup. Wait, did I say peanut butter? Stick around, you'll see what I'm talking about. Let's get to it. First, let's talk about mushrooms. Most people, when they think of mushrooms, they think of a white button mushroom. Well, guess what? A white button mushroom and a portobello mushroom, a baby bella or a mini bella, are all the same thing. They're just a difference is maturity. A white button mushroom is the same thing as a baby bella, except for that it's less mature. So it's a button mushroom, then turns into a baby bella, and then grows up to be a whole big portobello you'd put on a sandwich. Also, a cremini is another name for a baby bella or a mini bella. So just enough about mushrooms, okay? These are, like I said, wonderful looking mushrooms. We're gonna cut off this, we're gonna start by just cutting off the end of the stem because it's not very good and a little dried out. Another thing about cleaning mushrooms, you don't really wash mushrooms. You just kind of go through, and if you've got a brush or something, or just kind of brush off any growing media if there is any. These are really clean looking. They don't really have any growing media on them, so we're good to go. But if you wash mushrooms, they get kind of soggy. So we're gonna cut them into slices and add them to our pizza pan. We're gonna be roasting everything in pizza pans today because that's what I have. And it works really well. We're also gonna be careful not to crowd our pan because when you're roasting something, you need to make sure you give it plenty of room to get exposed to heat. If you put them all together, they just kind of steam, and that's not really what we want. We want a little higher temperature than that. So like I said, we're gonna just cut these into slices. And I've got about, let's see, what was it? 1.5 pounds of mushrooms, 3 8-ounce packages. So quite a few mushrooms, but as we cook them, they will reduce in size and in moisture. The first thing that happens when you put them into roast is they start losing moisture. And then once they finally get there, then they start darkening up and picking up some of the heat from the roasting. But they gotta lose a lot of moisture first, because mushrooms are a lot of moisture. They're wet. That's why you gotta be careful with mushrooms on a pizza. Because you get too many mushrooms on a pizza, it can get soggy, and nobody wants that. And I'm cutting them in about quarter inch slices, but it's not particularly important. Don't stress. There's many things to stress over in life, that's not one of them. I don't think you could cut up these mushrooms wrong. You could quarter them, you could leave them whole if you wanted to, but there wouldn't be as many to go around. There'd just be one big fat mushroom, and it'd take longer to roast too. Okay, like I said, you get the general idea. Well, we're almost done. Let's just keep going. We'll finish off a pan. There, now you can see when you spread these out in a pan that they pretty well fill up the pan. So we're gonna quit there. Oh, and they smell, oh, so earthy and delicious. Whew. Smells good. Yeah, we'll spread these out a little bit. Actually, let's smush them all over to one side for starters. And then we'll put a little olive oil onto them. Just a little bit. And then we'll take some thyme. We've got some fresh thyme here. And we'll take about one leaf at a time and grab it. Here, this is the technique that I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but it's the way I do it. I grab from the top of the stem where it's smallest and just kind of pull down on it. And the leaves come as you go. And then you can throw that top piece in there because it's mostly small stem that'll disappear. Same deal, grab from the top and then pull down. Grab from the top and pull towards the base. There, look at that, strip clean. And we'll do about 5 or 6 of those per pan. That'll give it enough to give it a really nice thyme flavor. There we go. Now we'll toss that together to get the oil and the thyme and the mushrooms all scattered around. Spread those out into a single layer, and into the oven they go at a 400 degrees for about 25 minutes, but you really just need to watch them. The oven's not on yet, but you get the idea. I'll just put them in there, 25 minutes, like the magic of TV, they're done. Okay, cauliflower's next. Let's talk cauliflower a little bit. If you're not familiar with it, it's a member of the brassica family, same as cabbage and broccoli and Brussels sprouts, and they all have a similar kind of flavor to them, but they're all different in their own way. In this case, I've already taken the leaves off the base of the cauliflower. The leaves come up and protect it, but in order to really clean it good, you have to take the leaves off first. So I removed those first, but I left the rest of it intact so you can see how to separate a head of cauliflower in case you're not familiar. First thing we'll do is just cut off this big old stem. We don't need that. There will be more where that came from, but for now, and then we're gonna just kind of cut right up the middle. Once again, don't stress over it. Not a big deal. We're gonna kind of cut out that center piece because that's not really too good, although it tastes kind of like rutabaga, if you like that sort of thing. I do. Very brassica-like. And then we'll just separate the pieces as they come off the head. And we want them a little smaller than that, but that's a good first pass. Let's see, let's do the rest of it. We're just gonna kind of slice these, and that's about as big as you want it. You don't want anything any bigger than that because it won't really break down. Although most of this cauliflower will disappear by the time we get to soup stage, because that's part of what makes this soup so delicious and creamy, is the cauliflower that breaks apart in the soup. Now this cauliflower will also all fit in the pan, so we don't have to worry too much about splitting it up. We'll just do it all in one batch. We do want to get any big hunks of stem off, like this one, because those won't really break down much. Then we'll just cut that in quarters. Okay, we got our cauliflower all cut up. That's one head of cauliflower, and that's just about the right amount for what we're doing today. We're gonna sprinkle some olive oil onto it. A little salt. This is seasoning for the soup too, so don't worry too much about how little or how much you're putting in there. You can always adjust later. And then pepper, fresh cracked pepper. And then we'll toss that around. Get the olive oil and the salt and pepper all spread around. And then we'll put that in the oven. And that'll be ready in about 20-25 minutes also. But keep an eye on it, because you don't want to overdo them, you don't want them to burn. So just keep an eye, you'll know. I'll show you what done looks like here in a little bit. Well, our first batch of mushrooms is coming out of the oven. And that's what done mushrooms look like. Here, just for contrast, that's what the second batch looks like before they've been in the oven. And this is what they look like after 23 minutes in the oven, so it doesn't take very long. And you know what those are is little concentrated bits of flavor now. They've dehydrated, most of the water has been lost, not all of it, but a good chunk of it, and they've gotten a nice roasty color and flavor to it, so that's gonna be really good. We'll put the second batch in. Well, our cauliflower is done. And that's what roasted cauliflower looks like when it's done, and I'll tell you what, it is delicious. Oh man, it's so good. Just by itself, a little salt, pepper, and olive oil, roasted in the oven, that's delicious. We go to a place down in Mexico that serves a whole head of cauliflower, just what we started as an hors d'oeuvre, and man, I could just sit there and eat that whole thing. It's good stuff. Well, our mushrooms and cauliflower has finished roasting. We put them all in one pan. After the roasting, they kind of reduce in size so they fit. But that's what they look like. Isn't that just beautiful? And those wonderful looking mushrooms, and I'm having a hard time keeping my hands off the cauliflower, I gotta tell you. So we'll set those aside. And also, under normal circumstances, when I'm making this soup, I would go ahead and cut up the mushrooms, cut up the cauliflower, get them started roasting in the oven. Then I would cut up the shallots and the garlic and get the roux started. And those would all be going at the same time. So although it looks like I'm doing this single threaded, I am because, the cameras. The cameras in the oven is noisy. So the oven is quieted down since we're done with that. So anyway, let's get with the shallots. A shallot is like an onion's highfalutin cousin. It's an onion with an attitude. It's a small, mild-tasting red onion is really what it is, and they're wonderful to use, and they're also very pretty because they're very small. So it's very easy to cut them in a small dice. So what we'll do, take a look at that. It looks like one big piece. We cut off the top end, and now at the root end, we're just going to slice it right down the root. And then peel out back the first layer of skin. These are pretty fresh, so shouldn't have to take much more than that. And we'll cut once this way. And then we'll just cut slices this way. Almost all the way to the root, but we'll leave the root to tie it together at the end. And then we'll cut as small a slice as we can. And look what a wonderful small dice that is. And that's just perfect for what we're doing today, where we want to make a nice, elegant roux to go with our mushrooms. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shallots. That'll make a lot of onion or shallot material, so that's just what we want. So, okay, that's the shallot. We'll move that off to the side, and I haven't done garlic on the show for quite some time. I haven't peeled garlic or haven't minced garlic, I guess. So I thought I'd do that. I'm going to cut off the top end and the root end this time. And with a nice big flat bladed knife like this, I'm just going to lean on it. Use my size to my advantage. Then take off the paper skin from the outside, and what we're left with is something that's just perfect for dicing. Go ahead and cut it up best we can into long slices, more of I guess that'd be a julienne, wouldn't it? And then we'll take those julienne sticks and mince them up the best we can. There, I'll take that for a home kitchen garlic dice, garlic mince, I guess. So we're gonna go ahead and do the rest of these, and the next time we talk, we'll be over at the stove. Well, we are at the stove, and it's roux time. Time to make the roux. We will get that going here. We're gonna turn our burner, and a roux is just fat, a lot of times butter, sometimes not, and usually some type of onion product. Today we're using shallots. You can use other aromatics in there too. You can use celery, carrots, bell pepper, and a lot of different cultures use a lot of different things, and that's good. Makes for variety. So anyway, we're gonna melt a stick and a half of butter. We're gonna melt a stick and a half of butter, and that seems like a lot right now, but it won't later. You just wait and see. Now, another alternative to making this soup is, instead of making it roux based, you could go ahead and just saute the garlic and the shallots in some butter. Probably not a stick and a half of butter, because we don't need to make the roux. Saute the shallots and the garlic in the butter, and then go ahead and assemble the soup after that, and it'll be more brothy than it will be creamy. It'll still be good, but it won't be quite the same as being a roux-based soup. Another alternative for the soup is, instead of using cauliflower, you could use other brassicas or any other roasted vegetables for that matter. You could roast carrots. We have done it with Brussels sprouts before. It was a little weird, but it was good. So there's a lot of options there. Although I have a recipe. Here, this is a sign of a good recipe. I've made it a lot, and I made notes along the way and kind of refined it as I go. Okay, our butter is now melted. That didn't take very long. And we're using our ever faithful Dutch oven today, the pumpkin, because it makes such good soup. Now we're going to add our shallots, and look what a fine dice I was able to get on those. That's the advantage of their diminutive size. Allows you to get a dice smaller than you can with your knife skills and using onions. Although there's certainly nothing wrong with making this with onions. As a matter of fact, I did that just last week when I was practicing, and it was delicious. I believe that the shallots will not take quite as long to caramelize as onions do, just because they're a little bit bigger. And we're gonna let those shallots saute for a little bit. We'll give them a little bit, probably a 5-minute head start on the, on the garlic, just because the garlic will tend to burn if you cook onions, well, especially if you cook onions and garlic at the same time. The garlic will burn before the onions get caramelized. Now shallots, once again being a little diminutive, ouch, I think I burned myself on some butter. Once again, shallots being a little diminutive compared to onions, they'll cook a little quicker, and so we'll, like I said, we'll wait just a few minutes before we add the garlic. And we'll turn the heat down on this, because this is going to be a slow cook. This will take about 25 minutes just to caramelize the onions and the garlic. Yeah, I'm serious, 25 minutes. It's worth it, trust me. It's going to be so good. And then once we add the flour, and then we brown the roux to get it to the color we want, that will probably take another 25 minutes. There, that looks pretty good. And we'll just let it sit like that, and we'll stir it on occasion because we can't just leave it alone. We'll let it sit like that for a good 5 minutes before we add the garlic, maybe even a little bit longer. We'll see you then. Well, our shallots are coming along nicely. Look at that. They've given up most of their moisture and are proceeding to the caramelization phase. I think there's really 3 stages of cooking to an onion. The first stage is softening, where it just kind of gives up some of its moisture. And when you see a lot of times in recipes soften the onions, that's what they mean. Let it give up a little moisture. The second phase is caramelization, where it turns sweet. It gives up some of its, it goes through some kind of a magic chemical process and it turns sweet. I don't know what it is. And the third phase is where it burns to a crisp. So we're trying to stop somewhere at the end of the second phase before we get to the third phase. Which brings me to our next addition. We've got our nicely minced garlic. And since it's so nicely minced, we didn't want to add it early on or it would get ahead of the shallots. So we'll add it now in hopes that they get to caramelization at the same time. We put the shallots on about 10 minutes ago. So the shallots have a 10-minute head start. Here's our garlic. We'll just stir that in. Everything is going according to plan. This is going to be so good. Okay, we'll let that sit for another 15 minutes or so. Well, you can see our caramelization is coming along nicely. You'll notice as you look at it, you can see that there are little flecks of white in there around what the other more brown or yellowish, reddish brown flecks. And those flecks are the garlic. So they are catching up with the shallots. They're not there yet. About the time they catch up, probably another 10 minutes or so. It's been almost 25 minutes already. Maybe another 5-10 minutes. Then we'll get started with adding the flour. The garlic has caught up with the shallots. They're all the same color. Matter of fact, I'm having a hard time telling which is which. So that's about right what we want. And I was thinking about the stages of an onion cooking. You know, what I just said, the first step is softening, the second step is caramelization, the third step is burned to a crisp. You know why onion burgers, like Oklahoma onion burgers, taste so good? That's a show we did a couple weeks ago. I'll put a link down in the description. It's because Oklahoma onion burgers have all 3 phases of that onion cooking on the burger. They have the underneath the burger that are protected by the burger. They have to just barely soften. On the outside edge, those onions get caramelized, and then you get outside from the burgers, and those onions get crisp. And it's a wonderful combination. If you haven't watched that, you should do that. And if you haven't made an Oklahoma onion burger, you should do that too. Wow, back to the roux. We have our wonderful looking caramelized shallots and garlic right where we want it. Now it's time to add the flour. By the way, that was about 35 minutes to get here. And you know, you can't put a time on this. You just have to wait for it to get there. It'll get there in its own time. So now we're just gonna artfully spread some flour around. We don't want to make dumplings. Not much risk of that though. This will actually come in real good. There's enough butter in there that'll protect us. Here's where we have to be a little more vigilant though. We have to stand here and actually stir this and pay attention to it for a good half hour. Maybe I'll get a chair. But it's gonna be so good. And boy, the kitchen smells so good right now. Kitchen smells so good. I'm gonna turn that down. Because although that's a nice brown right now, what we want, and I mentioned this earlier, what we want is a peanut butter roux. Does that mean I'm gonna add peanut butter to it? No, that'd be crazy. That's just crazy talk. What we want is for it to be that color. We want our roux to be that color. So we use a jar of peanut butter, as our measure of how far the roux is. We want a peanut butter roux. We cook it until it looks like a jar of peanut butter. And we just keep going back and forth. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? We're just gonna go low and slow on this. Take our time. We're in no hurry. And we've got nothing better to do but stand here and stir it for half an hour. It has been about 20 minutes. We'll do our little roux check. Peanut butter, roux. Peanut butter, roux. And I don't think we're there yet. We're getting close. Probably about another 20 minutes. It's been about 35 minutes. And our roux is looking exactly like we want. It's a very nice, dark, rich color. It's so full of flavor. And let's just compare it to our peanut butter. For reference, there's our peanut butter. There's our roux. Peanut butter, roux, peanut butter, roux. It looks like a chunky peanut butter roux, I think. And I think the little dark flecks in there are the garlic pieces that we added late, and they caught up and then some. So that's fine. So that's just where we want. All our hard work is paid off. Dog, I'm busy. We have a peanut butter roux. And just remember, there's 5 shallots, 4 cloves of garlic, a stick and a half of butter, and a half a cup of flour in what is now just been reduced to a shapeless paste. But it's so full of flavor. It's so good. And it smells so good in here. Okay, so we've got the heat on low. We're now going to deglaze that with just a little bit of stock. In this case, we're using chicken stock. You could use beef stock. I wouldn't use beef stock. You could use vegetable stock if you wanted to. We're just gonna pour a little bit of that in there. We don't want to shock our roux too much. And then we'll go ahead and stir that in. Add a little bit more. A bit more. See how that's thickening up right away? That's the magic of the flour. Oh, and the color is just gorgeous, just beautiful. That rich color that we worked so hard for. There, now you see why we spent so much time getting into peanut butter. It's for this right here. It's to get this beautiful, rich color and flavor and aroma. And we're going to add 2 full containers, so it'll be 8 cups. 8 cups of chicken stock, or like I said, vegetable stock. I wouldn't use fish stock either. That wouldn't be right. Somebody thinks I'm paying too much attention to the soup. Go ahead and turn the heat up. Get it back up to a reasonable temperature. Don't have to wait very long though. And then, remember our old friends, the roasted cauliflower and the roasted mushrooms? That's when we add those back. Without making too much of a mess. There we go. The heavy lifting is done, the hard work is done. All we have to do is just let it simmer for an hour or so. And I really haven't had a taste yet, so I want to give it a taste. I imagine it will need nothing. Oh yeah, it's still very good. Very good. Oh yes, that's excellent. So we'll let that get to temperature and we'll see in about an hour. It may have taken 3 hours to get here, but man, this thing it smells so good. Had a little taste, it tastes so good. And it's just beautiful. Just what you want in a soup. I did add a little more stock to it. It was a little too chunky for my taste. It wasn't soupy enough, so I added about another half a box of another 2-3 cups of stock. Now it's just about right. And like I said, it's been simmering here for not quite an hour, but 45 minutes. And you can see the little chunks of thyme floating in it. You can see the mushrooms. You can see the cauliflower is still in there. It's starting to really break down, and a lot of it has already broken down. It's become the creaminess of the soup. I don't see any shallots. I don't see any garlic, but they're in there. You know they're in there. And you will taste them. Okay, let's eat. See you over at the table. Well, it took 3 or 4 hours to get it done, but look what we got. That is a good looking bowl of soup. Just creamy and delicious. Big old hunks of mushroom, cauliflower, and just the smell is amazing. It's everything I wanted in a soup today. So I'm happy about that. We've got a few croutons here. I'm just gonna I'm gonna crunch a few croutons into it because they're a little big. But I like a little crunch. And the croutons do that. And then we're gonna put a little pecorino romano on the top of it, just because we have some in the fridge. That'll make a nice touch. Look at that. Okay, let's give it a try. Oh boy, is that good. The depth of flavor and the complexity from doing the long, slow cook on the shallots and the garlic, and the long, slow cook on the roux, you can taste it all. And the cauliflower is melting in your mouth. Boy, just doesn't get much better than this. That's good soup. Good soup on a winter night. Well, this has been Paul Plays with Fire. Thanks for watching. Recording. Glasses off. Following. Clapping.